Well, hello guys, how's it going? I'm the Tmeister, and welcome back to South Africa, episode 2. In this episode, guys, I'm going to be building the main train station right in downtown of the city of no name. I still haven't chosen a name for this city. You guys have given me a ton of good suggestions, but I'm just not sure. You guys didn't do anything wrong. I actually like your suggestions. It's just I haven't picked out the best one to fit this city the best. So I'm still on the hunt for a name for this city. Just keep the suggestions coming in. And I like the fact that some of you have given me some little explanations on why the city should be named a certain way. So keep doing that, guys, and we'll eventually find a name for the city. So anyways, right in downtown is a major train station that's going to service the entire map. There's only going to be the main city and maybe another town on the map. So this would be more of an international train station or like a national train station outside of the region. And like I said, not necessarily to other cities or towns on this map. But nonetheless, I mean, it occupies a pretty big space in downtown, so it's a pretty important landmark in the city. And I expect a ton of traffic to be coming through these gates. So I also want it to be as functional as possible in that regard. So yeah, I want traffic to be free flowing in and out of the station. I want this whole thing to just make sense. So that's why this is a quite large multi-lane system. One thing here, so a lot of what you're seeing right now is going to change. So I'm laying down some tracks. I wasn't too sure what I was doing at this point. I don't know why I chose to bring the tracks on this side of the highway, because so what I've done here is I eventually paused the game and I went to the extremities of the map where the rail comes in from the edges of the map, and I noticed only after building this that they were on the other side of the highway. So crossing under the highway here is kind of pointless. So a little later in this episode, I am going to redo this whole rail intersection. However, well, not really, not the entire thing. So there's two rail connections on each edge of the map. There's one on like the eastern end and one on the northern end, and there's a bunch of mountains and stuff in between. So this is basically where those two rail connections intersect. So trains can go from one edge to the map to the other, or they can branch off at this T interchange here and go right into the train station. And every rail line that I'm placing down here will kind of intertwine with each other. So if a train wants to be in the first, I'm not even sure what the proper terminology is here, but if a train wants to go into the first bay, but it's coming in from the north side of town, it can do that. Or if it's coming in from the east side of town, it can go in any bay of the train station that it wants. So that's my design that I'm going for here. But yeah, unfortunately, the way that I made this, I kind of screwed up. So I'm going to destroy this T interchange, not the road interchange. I'm not going to touch anything on that, but the T interchange for the rail, I'm going to destroy a little later in this episode and then rebuild it on the other side of the highway. So anyway, you guys will see what I'm going to do. So as far as the train station, I had to go shopping on the workshop for a couple of hours trying to find a station that would actually look good in this region. And not only that, this train station had to be a terminus station. So it had to be the very last station on a network. It's not like a through station. Those kind of stations are a little harder to find on the workshop. There's less of them. So what I'm doing here is I just ended up plopping down a through station, but then not extending it on the other side, and then plopping a bunch of buildings on top of it. And this is kind of a common theme I've noticed in South Africa. Just browsing around on Google Maps, I noticed that a lot of train stations in South Africa tend to just be these massive warehouse-looking buildings, and then a bunch of other buildings that are kind of seemingly built on top of it. I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, I'm going to show you on your screen now what I'm talking about, but I don't know. This seems like it's unique to South Africa. And I don't know if this is actually a thing, like a thing that's talked about, or a known fact or whatever, but I've been to various train stations in Europe. This wasn't really the case. Train stations around North America are not really designed in this way. So from what I've seen, this is the only case where I've seen these kind of train stations exist is in South Africa. And like I said, just these giant warehouse buildings with a bunch of other buildings that were just attached to it. Anyway, that is kind of what I was going for in this build. So I'm doing this on a bit of a smaller scale, of course, because I don't want the train station to take up half of downtown. But I mean, it just still looks very similar. So this train station, well, this build that I'm doing today, I'm not only going to be plopping down a train station and calling it a day. I'm going to be going really into detail, a little bit more than I usually do. So on the side of the train station, or in front, I guess, depending on how you look at it, will be a giant bus/taxi depot. And then on the other side of it will be like a sort of drop-off area. And in between all of those will be a really nice plaza. I'm going to detail it really nice, adding some palm trees and everything, something I have never done before in City Skylines. I've never actually made anything in a tropical kind of setting before. So this is really interesting for me. So these are like the first palm trees I'm ever placing down in City Skylines. Well, not literally, but pretty much. So yeah, a lot of detailing going on in this episode, which, I had a lot of fun with this build. It's unusual, but I think that's what made it so fun. It's just something new, something that I'm not used to doing. But a ton of stuff going on in this episode. And as far as downtown, I'm going to be focusing on downtown for the next probably, 5-6 episodes. I really don't know at this point, honestly, but it's going to be for the next little while. And so far, I've gotten some really good feedback on downtown. I think you guys are liking the way that the skyline is looking. So for now, I'm not going to change anything. I might do some minor changes eventually once we really start to get into the nitty-gritty stuff of downtown. But this is one of the first steps that I wanted to get out of the way, and that is the train station. It's one of the main landmarks of seemingly every city in South Africa. So I wanted to make sure that I got that, especially it's such a huge structure. It's kind of hard to build downtown and its surroundings and then get into the to the train station. So I just thought that the train station was the first thing on the list. And I find this is the perfect location for it too. It's nice and flat. There's actually plenty of room around it, and I'm really at this point getting a sense of how I want, I guess, the transition from downtown to the rest of the city to look. So with the train station being right here, this is perfect. It'll be like an important piece in that transition. And here I'm mostly going to be using some decals made by King Leno. These are really great. There's a ton of assets and things that these are used on, and I think they look really nice, especially that in Cape Town, these types of brick are pretty much everywhere. It's like a red brick. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it looks nice, and I think this represents Cape Town quite well. And of course, I'm not only going for a Cape Town feel, like I said in my last episode. I'm going to go for a general South African feel. So there's going to be a lot of influence from Cape Town, but also Durban, maybe Johannesburg or Pretoria. So yeah, I'm going to be hopping around from location to location and looking for cues and stuff that I can use for building this. another thing that I have to ask you guys, so a lot of comments, I'm actually really surprised about this, but a lot of comments that I've gotten on the first episode of South Africa were from people from South Africa, which is really great. And a lot of you offered to help me with certain things, how things should look, or I don't know, just general basic questions that I have. So I'm gonna start off actually, guys, with asking you this. What type of buses and what type of trains should I be using in this city? So of course, I'm sure that Johannesburg doesn't have the same train models or bus models as Cape Town, for example. But if you guys could maybe send me some workshop links, or at least give me the names of certain vehicles that I could use for buses and trains, that would be really awesome. I haven't been able to find really like anything that makes sense on the workshop. I haven't really looked in detail, to be honest, but a lot of what is on the workshop tends to be from Europe or Asia. Of course, most likely because public transport is so developed in those parts of the world that, you know, there's just so many different models and stuff. But yeah, if you guys could let me know what type of public transportation I should be using in this city, and not limited to only trains and buses, but anything. Even like what kind of cars should be spawning in the city. Although I think I have that covered for the most part. I've already gotten some help on what I should be using as cars and, you know, different things like that. But anyways, drop a comment down below, guys, and let me know. And here, this is actually interesting. So some people mentioned that these Toyota mini buses are all over the place in South Africa. And I'll believe it, because when I was in Thailand, that was the case as well. And yeah, so I'm going to be placing a lot of these down all over the map, wherever I can. There seems to be a lot of like taxi lots, if you will, around the train station in Johannesburg, where like these types of vehicles would be parked, or, you know, there might be some garages where these are being repaired. But nonetheless, I mean, there is just a ton of minibuses all over South Africa. So I think that's pretty cool. It was pretty awesome that they were on the workshop too. So that was nice and convenient. So anyways, I'm gonna take a break from building the lot, and I'm gonna jump back into creating the new rail network coming into the station. So this is what I was talking about earlier, and I'll get back to the taxi lot in a little bit, don't worry. So to do what I wanna do, I'm gonna have to modify this road interchange just a little bit. And by modify, honestly, there's not a whole lot that needs to be done, but I need to extend some of these overpasses to allow train tracks to go under them. So of course, the train tracks leading to the east end of the map need to be on this side of the highway. So I figured it's kind of unnecessary to bring them to the other side. So this is why I'm doing this project. So in the end, there's going to be a couple lanes going left and a couple lanes going right. So I want to make this network as efficient and actually like interconnected as possible. And not only is this rail network going to be for transportation, or I guess like passenger transportation, it's going to be used for cargo as well. Now, it's always a good idea to segregate both networks. You would always want to have like a passenger network and a freight network separate, just to prevent clogging. So I'm going to try to do that in this map as well. But eventually both of these rail networks will be connected at some point. And of course I'm using some train tracks by Ronnie X. And he has a fantastic pack of all different kinds of rail lines. I probably didn't really need to subscribe to all of his. There's probably like 50 or 60 of them because I only use one, but that's okay. And this area is going to be super cool, guys. I have a vision on how the whole rail area / road interchange is going to look like. So in between all of these highway exits and rail lines that seem to be kind of just spaghettiing all over the place, this will kind of be like some open fields and maybe a couple of warehouses and whatnot. And this is something that you see a lot, especially in Cape Town. So a big portion of the city land seems to be just these open fields where there must have been buildings at some point and they were torn down. So I'm gonna be building a little bit of that, and I can't wait because it's gonna look so cool. All right, and jumping back over to the taxi lot now, I'm going to be finishing up the rest of this episode with some detailing. So this lot, for now, will be a sort of taxi / minibus depot. I'm going to plop a couple of city buses as well that may be in maintenance. So we could say that this is a lot owned by the city, I guess, or I don't know. Give me some suggestions, guys. But I don't know, I might eventually repurpose this lot for something. We can kind of assume this is a filler lot for now. I most likely won't reuse it for something else, but at least we have the option if ever something else arises. And the reason I'm saying that is, so around Cape Town, around the train station, there seems to be this elevated portion of the station that's completely dedicated to minibus parking. And it would be cool to build something like that. And there also seems to be a market on top of the rail station, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just assuming, judging by Google Maps, but that would be kind of cool to create in this area, a giant market or something. But other than that, guys, I mean, this episode is wrapping up here. For the remainder of it, I'm just going to be adding some bushes and stuff. So I was kind of imagining this area being kind of run down and old. So of course there's like grass and little bushes and stuff coming up through the cracks. But other than that, that is going to be pretty much it for this episode. So stay tuned, guys. In just a second here, there's going to be some really awesome cinematics. I'm loving the way this project is coming together so far. This rail station is an important landmark for the city, and I can't wait to see it being used. So just a note, the cinematics that are coming up are just blank. There's nothing going on. And of course, I can't really press play and run the simulation yet because there's no water or power in this city yet. Well guys, that is going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, but if you did, give it a thumbs up. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check out my Patreon as well if you'd like to support the channel even further. So until the next episode, guys, please take care.